Mr. Dave Kopel, the research director at the Independence Institute, is with us tonight. Dave, good evening, sir.
It is a very good evening.
It is. We were talking earlier this evening. Last night on the program, we had here in studio Jim Garrity from National Review Online's Campaign Spot, and he said something about this being the most frustrating landslide that he's been a part of. And I told him, I said, look, you got to look at the big picture here. You got to see the gains that have been made. And whether you're talking about conservatives, Republicans, or gun owners, I think all three of them have a lot of success stories to point to last night.
Absolutely. And people, and especially people in favor of fiscal restraint, which was the unifying issue for the electorate.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm curious. Colorado is an interesting case. I mean, the governor's race there, the Republican candidate had a lot of problems. Tom Tancredo comes in as a third-party candidate, and Hickenlooper ends up winning with 51% of the vote. The Senate race, so close there, about less than 16,000 votes between Michael Bennet and Ken Buck. But, it was sort of the story of the night, Dave. Even when Democrats did well in statewide races, when you look at the congressional districts, they faltered, and Colorado no exception.
Well, that's right. Although in the gun issue, it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
Betsy Market actually, the district that represents the CD4, the Eastern Plains of Colorado, had knocked off Marilyn Musgrave, who was a real leader on Second Amendment issues, but had just run some terrible campaigns and used up all of her 9 lives. And so Markey defeated Musgrave in 2008, and Markey was no leader on the issue, but she voted right on everything and was among the signers of the letter to Attorney General Holder, telling him no new assault weapon ban. But that was a district that was strongly Republican, and it sort of reverted back with a good candidate, Cory Gardner, who has a very good pro-gun record in the state legislature, and I think will be real solid on the issue. And then the big district in western Colorado, the Western Slope, that's been John Salazar, the younger but more pro-gun brother, the brother of Ken Salazar, the Interior Secretary, who always had a fine record on guns in the state legislature and in Congress. But he voted for Obamacare. He just got way too. He had tried to be in step with the district, but he was like a lot of the Blue Dogs. He just got pulled into this Obama-Pelosi agenda, which was very unpopular with the American people in general and his district in particular.
Yeah, and, one of the other races there, and this was a race that I know a lot of conservatives were watching, was the race between Ryan Frazier and Ed Perlmutter. Perlmutter won that race last night, but you said on the Volokh conspiracy that because of the gains that Republicans made in the state House, redistricting is now going to be a bipartisan affair, and that's not good news for Ed Perlmutter 2 years from now.
Well, that's right. It was that district that he's in, which is sort of a U, or I guess an N, that sits on top of Denver, covering Denver to the west, to the north, and the east, was drawn very carefully to try to create a winnable district for Democrats, and it turned out to be right. But it's by no means an overwhelmingly Democratic district, so even some small changes in that could make it tougher for him next time around.
Interesting. Now, looking nationally, I thought you did a fantastic job last night of scoring these races for the Second Amendment. Now, you've got an interesting scale. If you go from an F-rated candidate to an A-rated candidate, that earns that seat an entire point, right?
That's right. That's a +1, and same as if an A beats a D.
Okay. If it's a C to an A, that's a half a point. If it's a B to an A, that's a quarter point. Looking at that scale in the Senate, we saw a net gain of 6 points in favor of gun owners, right?
Exactly, and that's significant, and that on some bills at least, that probably puts us over gets us into a filibuster-proof position.
Whew. Gosh, wouldn't that be incredible?
Yeah.
In the Senate. In the House, A pickup of 18 3/4.
That's right. With still some races from perhaps Arizona and others undecided, and that could slip back because Choke and Bob Etheridge from North Carolina. It looked like he lost, but he's now demanding a recount. But that's approximately we're somewhere in the high teens.
Okay,
and that's taken a House that was already had a good pro-gun majority and making it bigger.
Right, absolutely. The governor's races, it looked like there wasn't a lot of change in terms of the overall net pro-Second Amendment governors out there.
No, you're up some and you're down some. You have Hawaii and Rhode Island, which had pro-gun retiring Republican governors, now replaced by some real solid antis. Wisconsin, Illinois is still up in the air, but it so far the good candidate is a little bit behind with 99% in, and of course that's not even taking into account the post-election voting of all the dead people.
Exactly, and the military ballots that weren't sent out on time and things of that nature.
Right, but we got a real important pickup in Pennsylvania, where he had Ed Rendell, who was a real anti-gun zealot, being replaced by a good pro-gun candidate. That's an important win.
And in Wisconsin.
And the retentions. I mean, Florida's a hugely important state, and it had Charlie Crist, who, whatever else you want to say about him, had a very good record on guns as governor, and he got replaced in a very narrow election by a pro-gun Republican.
Yeah, Rick Scott winning that, Alex Sink, the Democrat, conceding. Just, by the way, a few minutes ago, Chris Dudley conceded the Oregon governor's race.
That's a pickup. That's a nice pickup. Oh, Dudley conceded. That's
conceded,
too bad.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, and again, it looks like it's going to be about 10,000 votes between the two leading gubernatorial candidates, which is, again, I think one of the stories is the closeness in some of these races. So many of them, including my own congressional district, are still out there with, just a couple of hundred votes separating
you're the
these two.
Connolly versus Fimian?
I am.
Boy, it'd be nice to see Connolly lose.
It would. I went out and I knocked on doors the weekend before the election. I guess if Connolly maintains his seat, I'll just have to start doing that a little bit earlier in the next election cycle, because this was an opportunity to go from an F-rated candidate to an A-rated candidate. And, around the country, Dave, again, there are at least a dozen races that you can look at where the margin of victory for the anti-gun incumbent is 1% or less.
That's right, and that means that incumbent is vulnerable. And, 2012 is going to have changed districts, which in some cases may make it harder for that particular candidate. We've when we got close on some folks but didn't take them out, it doesn't mean we have to give up on that.
No, absolutely. And one other race that I just wanted to mention in Colorado, you said the Republican Attorney General won re-election, and that's important in terms of obviously now the Second Amendment and the legal aspects of the Second Amendment.
Well, that was surprising because in that case the challenger had actually criticized him for filing the amicus briefs on the pro Second Amendment side in Heller and McDonald, and part of that was, you shouldn't be filing amicus briefs on issues outside the state. But the challenger also went on to say that he thought local communities ought to be able to enact gun laws, like as in gun bans, like Washington D.C. and Chicago had. So that was a real stark choice on that issue.
Well, I'm glad to hear this was the incumbent Attorney General. Glad to hear that he won
John
re-election.
Summers, yep.
All right. Well, I mean, again, the bottom line, Dave, you think this was a good night for gun owners, and I realize we're 2 years out here, but I think things look pretty good 2 years from now for gun owners as well.
It sets up the possibilities for success, partly because, and this is something that you didn't see a lot on television, but according to the National Conference of State Legislatures, this year was the worst Democratic losses in state houses since 1928. And 2011 is going to be the redistricting year, so that's going to have enormous implications and opportunities. Which is not to say all Dems are bad on guns or all Republicans are good, but on the whole, more Republicans usually put you in a better situation on Second Amendment issues.
Yeah.
And we've got 4 new constitutional rights added: right to hunt and fish in Arkansas, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and individual right to keep and bear arms in Kansas. And as I'll discuss in an article on the New Ledger, that's an online daily newspaper I write for sometimes, tomorrow morning, politicians come and go, but constitutions endure. So that's among our very most important victories.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking with Darren Lesort, NRA's manager of hunting policy, about those initiatives coming up here in just a couple of minutes. And again, Dave, thank you so much for coming on the program last night during the election coverage and tonight as well. And I'll look forward to reading your article in the New Ledger tomorrow.
Well, thanks. We all drove gun control into a ditch, so I think we should sit back and have a nice big Slurpee.
I've got my Slurpee cup right here, as a matter of fact. Dave, have a great evening, sir. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thanks.